Based violence and the implications, what measures or help is really available for people who find themselves assaulted in the domestic environment? Well, that's what we want to look at tonight. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and like I just told you, this evening we're going to go into the policies that are available and why it seems they have not worked in protecting victims of domestic violence. I do have on the panel with me Dr. Angela Dwamnabo-Adjei. She's lawyer and executive director of the ACT Foundation Ghana. Good evening to you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm
happy to be here, Beatrice, and happy to see you too.
Yes, great to see you. Yes, I also do have on my left side Mr. Bright Apia, who is Executive Director, Charles Wright International. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us.
Thank you.
I mean, we recently had you on New Day talking about child abuse and all of that. And we are honored as well to have on the phone with us Dr. Agnes Namomolate, Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Honorable, good evening to you. Thank you as well for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
Remember that we're streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Send us your comment and we'll read them back to you. Once again, my name is Beatrice Adu, and thank you very much for joining us on the program tonight. Honorable, I want to start with you. First, if you could kindly give us an update on Madam Harriet Amuzu, how she's doing.
Thank you very much for having me. And then I want to say hello to Doc Angela Dwamnabo-Adjei, and then Mr. Bright. Thank you so much for being there. I wish I would have been there personally. So on the issue of Harriet, currently Harriet is safe, being protected, and then the children are also with her, as well as the informants. So all of those involved in the case are safe, and then the perpetrator is also commenced the court case, so we are hoping for the best. We hope to follow it to its logical conclusion.
If you can tell us how many those children are, their ages, and whether or not this has affected their education in any way.
The children are 3, 5 years, and then 2.5 years. They are currently okay. I think one was not too well when we picked. The little one was not too well when he was picked up. But from all indications, from what we have seen and what we have heard, they've been exposed largely to violence because they've witnessed the beatings and all that. All the time it happened, they were exposed. And so they need some sort of support to be able to have proper growth and development so that it doesn't affect them, and then they also ending up being adults who are repeating the cycle of violence.
So what that means is that as you're giving the victim, the mother, psychological help, you're also helping with the children as well. That's what you're saying? Definitely,
that's what it means. And all of us, the police, the ACT Foundation, and every other stakeholder is going to make sure that the children are safe, as well as the mother, not only physically, but also emotionally and psychologically.
We know the police picked the culprits, plus 2 other family members who had tried to assault the neighbor who filmed it. Are you able to give us updates, court appearance, and all of that, plus how the neighbor is equally doing?
The last time I checked, they were also in police custody. That's the family members who assaulted, are alleged to have assaulted the informant. They were in police custody. I haven't followed up on them as we speak to know what the latest is.
Perhaps let me ask you this before I come to the panel right here in studio. If you could help us understand really the data on domestic violence. Of course, we're learning that nearly 3 in 10 women, that's about 28%, and 2 in 10 men experience that. But you work in an area where you get the data and the statistics coming to you. Paint a picture for us what the situation is like nationally.
Okay, so the statistics you put out is what we have now. And this is something that changes. Maybe Doc Dwamnabo-Adjei will be on top of the data more than myself. She's when it comes to domestic violence, our foundation is the expert institution in terms of handling abused persons. So in terms of the data, it's just what you put out there. And today, like I was also, it's around the 28% that you just shared. So basically, I would say that the situation is deteriorating. I can say that if we should conduct research today, you realize that the situation is bad. In as much as more people are reporting now, and there are more avenues and channels to report, we also realize that in terms of coordination and all that, things are deteriorating, and we need to actually act fast and ensure that we implement the law and institutions responsible for various activities, implement them to ensure that we are all safe and secured in this country.
Yeah, I will come back to you, Doc, but I want to come to Dr. Angela Dramna-Boaji here. I mean, we've worked together on a number of issues, even getting people into your own shelter. And the Honourable Minister just said that you could even have a clearer understanding in terms of data of what's happening, if you can tell us really what you know so far.
Well, the current data suggests the 30%, 1 out of 3 women, adult women who have been in any kind of intimate relationship, whether marital, cohabiting, or otherwise, having been harmed by physical or sexual violence, or both. But I even chanced on data very, very recently that suggested it's gone up to 41%.
Ooh.
Yes, in Ghana. So we need to probably go back again in a year and do a national prevalence and incidence kind of thing, because we need to be able to track the numbers and why we are not even seeing high reportage. Even though reporting is going on, this area is still a very underreported crime because of cultural reasons, pressure reasons, institutional reasons, and so on. So that's what I know. For boys and men, it used to be 10%. But the latest data I found suggested 14%. And even though there are differences in the ways in which women and girls are harmed and men and boys are harmed in terms of the motivations and so on, it's still bad.
It's still bad.
It's still bad. Whether it's boys and men, women and girls, it's still bad. 14% is high.
We had Dr. Momolate there saying that the lack of coordination is really affecting how we're able to deal with this. You're in the field. Tell us what is missing beyond what she just told us.
That is the biggest of our problems, the lack of coordination. But even before that comes institutional response. Sometimes it feels as though all the work that was done in the early 90s to the 2000s, where we actually got advocacy going to establish women and juvenile units, now DOFSU, okay, because we realized that this is a special area of work and we needed a specialized unit for it, because the traditional police had a certain attitude to violence against women, violence against children, but particularly violence against women, okay? And we got the DOFSU. But it appears as though the complaints we have been getting over and over again has taken us back into those days where you go and complain that you're being harmed by your husband and they'll give you a bottle of water or something. Then we didn't even have bottles of water, a glass of water, and say, I'll say it in Chima, don't come and waste our time here. We are fighting armed robbers. If you went big mouth, your husband wouldn't hit you. Okay, we used to have those complaints. It appears we're coming back. So the first part of it is... To
understand that even this woman reported several times and there was no positive response.
So one of our worries, the fact that the attitudinal thing, the cultural norms that we bring to work as professionals, we are retrogressing in that. But let me also say that even at this time, there are excellent police officers, the kind that do their work with their hearts, with their hands and their head. And within a very restrictive context because of resource constraints, the police always needs, a lot of resources and so on, no vehicles to move and all of that. They are really constrained. But yet you would meet those who are committed and who are sensitized, trained, and know what to do, and they will work the system. Try to find other people or other organizations that can complement their work and make sure that the best they can do for the victim happens. So that's there. Then the coordination thing comes in. You can't do this work. It's a multifaceted, multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral, hydra-headed problem. We can't run away. No one case comes to you with just one problem. The person is coming as a baggage. Physical, psychological, needs medical, needs psychological, needs the courts, needs the hospitals, needs the social services, needs shelter. That's the way every single case comes. So if you are not working together, it means that it will fall apart at a certain point. And these kinds of systems have been tested and tried in this country, and they have worked at different places, and it only it needs the state to take it up more seriously, because it's not only in the law, it's in the policies. And I tell you, as for the documents, I've read too many, I'm even tired. The things that we have written in this country about how to work on, they are just too many. We don't need any other one. It is just about time that we capacitize our institutions that are supposed to do this work to be able to coordinate.
Ms. Appiah, recently, and I was saying that you were on New Day talking about children and the rate at which they were equally being abused. In this case, we have children in there. We heard the minister tell us that they also need help. How bad does it get?
Well, it is bad because anytime a woman is abused at home, definitely there's some kind of effect on the children too. Because most of the cases that I've handled, I've realized that it's like a family kind of problem where there's an issue between the parent, and children also bear the consequences of that action, whether they are being neglected, or they are being used as a tool for the engagement in terms of how they want to negotiate their way out of the issue. And children at the center, and they find it very difficult to understand what is going on. So it plays a lot on them. And just as the minister acknowledged that this kids, definitely they have witnessed the abuse for a while. So more or less they are getting used to it. They are getting to understand the language and think that that's a normal way of doing things. For that matter, those who have some kind of attachment to whether the father or the mother, will react in a certain way. And that will also go to the extent of affecting how they live with them. And that for me, whenever there's an abuse and there's a child in the center of it, the child is also not spared in the process. So dealing with it, you need that approach to be able to do that. And beyond the institutional framework that we're talking about in terms of the coordination and all that, I also think that for us to deal with it, when somebody comes to report an abuse, as the doctor said, you do not look at the person in terms of what exactly the person is saying at that particular moment, but you look at it in the form of give it a holistic approach to be able to do proper investigation to understand all the various compartments or the department around that particular person and see how best you can deal with it. Because when issue come and then you look at it because of the narration, you may get it wrong. That is why when you look at the Children's Act, when it comes to investigation, it requires that when matters of that nature comes, you need to do what we call the social inquiry report to be able to understand the family dynamics so that when you are professing certain solutions, you know exactly what to target. And the kind of services that you need to be able to address some of these issues and all that. So the child is not spared in the process.
The child is not spared in the process. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Momolate, and really the gaps that you have seen, what you're doing as a gender minister to deal with them.
Thank you very much. If I heard you right, what you are doing as a gender, I'm doing as a gender minister.
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay.
To deal with the gaps that you yourself identified.
It's not easy because every institution feels sovereign in a way, and sometimes navigating your way through is difficult. So if me as the minister, I am having difficulty, relating to structures and institutions, and then maybe they are also having difficulty relating to me, you can imagine what my staff will be going through. And so some of the things you need to step in for immediate action to be done. You are supposed to be heavy on policies, but the way things are going and the way things are now, if you remain at the policy level, you will hardly get anything done. And so you need to move a step down to be able to assist to fast track things and get things done. So let's make particular reference to this case. I had to, in the first case instance, go on the field with the police to ascertain what was happening, especially after we had secured the mother, how the children were faring. And it took a while for me to even be able to go through the family to have access to the children. And eventually, when I noticed that we could make, some headway, my officers came in. So as a ministry, what we do, we have the children's department. We also have the Department of Social Welfare, which has been decentralized. And that is another story, a story for another time. But these departments work to ensure that the children are safe. The gender department is also there. So the domestic violence and then the gender departments work together to ensure that gender-based violence is handled in a very professional way. When institutions are decentralized, they are meant to build, to be stronger and then be more responsive to the citizens. But you realize that if it is not properly coordinated, they decentralize and then things, get worse in terms of the way we handle things, we coordinate things, and then our response to issues. And once there's delay in response, trust and hope is eroded. And that is what we need to avoid. Once people lose trust in us as institutions, then you realize that they have no hope and they will not be interested in bringing cases to us. Again, let me use the particular case in reference. It was difficult getting Harriet to trust the institutions to work. But after a period of conversation, she realized that there was some hope that she could, hang on to trust that. So as a ministry, we are doing our best under the circumstances. But we need to work with all stakeholders, every single stakeholder, because the whole issue of abuse and violence is so multifaceted that you cannot handle it alone. And it is not for any institution to say you are taking glory or so, whatever it is. But it is for us to ensure that we are responsive to the needs of our people as mandated by law.
And indeed, you
So
did
that is what we're trying to do.
Yes, you did mention that the institutions themselves feel sovereign and indirectly saying that they don't like to be interfered with, or they don't want to see interferences. But again, I'm going back to my first question about the coordination, because you have social welfare, you have DOSU, even the Ministry of Health or the Ghana Health Service, ensuring that you're working together with all of them. How would you say is going so far since you became a gender minister?
Well, I would say that it is good, but it can be better. It is good, but it can be better. So, for instance, those that have to report on their own before they reach out to us, where there's so much injury, and then they have to go for police reports, medical attention, and so on and so forth. You know that the filing fee and all that, when they are the medical fee, it becomes so difficult for some people to access. So once they are not able to, get to that, what they do is that they give up before the case even, gets started. Well, it is one barrier. One of the things that we also look at in terms of the coordination, you realize that people come in with their own, perceptions about how things are supposed to work, or we all have our own perceptions about how things are supposed to work or not to work. And so that can also be a hindrance. But all in all, I believe strongly that what we are doing is getting us some results as institutions. But we know that we have the capacity and the capability to even do better, so that people can trust us, the citizens can trust the institutions to be able to meet them at their point of need when it comes to issues of violence. And so we will need to intensify that. And then we also need to commit not only by way of the laws being available and being implemented or enforced, but allocating the requisite budget, the requisite budgetary allocation to ensure that whatever we have to do, let me say, resources or logistics do not become a challenge or impediment to us doing that. So, for instance, you're taking someone to the shelter, you have to make sure that medically the person is okay, and then when they get to the shelter, they'll be going to court. Transportation, a whole lot of things come in. I'm sure once again, Doc is in a very good position to tell you about that. So we are working now, but it's at a very slow pace, such that they get frustrated, the victims themselves get frustrated, and I'm sure that once we are able to, come together, sit at a table, have a whole discussion, we can make use of the scarce resources. I have this. You have like a percentage of what is needed. You also have a percentage of what is needed. We bring it together into a common kitty, and we make sure that we allocate them such that everybody plays its role effectively to meet the current needs of our people.
Doc, let me ask you this before I come back to the panel in studio. I'm glad you know about the medical bill form and how that is a barrier. I do understand that, for instance, district hospitals are supposed to be taking care of that. And yet there's a big challenge because they also don't have the resources. What are you doing specifically about that? Because this morning there was a concern expressed about that also, even on New Day. How are you doing about, what exactly are you doing to deal with that?
I am happy that this, I don't know what has changed now, but I know that they still pay. I don't know, you have to refer once again to the practitioner, Dr. John Nabwaji. I know they still pay. There was a time we raised the whole advocacy when in a different capacity, working from a non-governmental sector, a whole advocacy to get some of these fees that are impediment waived, so that people can have access and then report. So that's one. I can't say that when you go to a government hospital, you will not pay the fee. I know people pay. People still pay. Unless something has changed that I don't know about.
I'll come back to you, but Doc, I mean, listening to the concerns, really, what can be done to improve the system? Because she just mentioned that it's at such a slow pace that both those who are supposed to be protecting and the victims themselves sometimes get discouraged along the way.
Yes, and she's right. And I can feel her pain too, because she's coming newly and you come into a whole fray of issues. And I love the hands-on approach, but it's my prayer that it won't repeat itself. Otherwise, she won't have the peace and quiet she needs to work at a certain level where we need her to be. So I really do like the hands-on approach now, but my prayer is that this conversation will be moved forward in such a way that she would then be receiving reports from the institutions that are supposed to be on the ground working and take decisions that are necessary at the cabinet level and at the different levels that we need. The medical report thing, in the law, it states very clearly that when you are assisted by a police officer, once you have reported the case, you are supposed to get free medical treatment, which includes the filling of the medical form that the police would add to the filing of the case, okay? And it's very, very needed for a prosecution. For the longest time since this act was passed, and even before, the medical people are saying we have a law covering us for us to take that money because that's what we use to bring to court and all of those things. We have done advocacy at different levels to say, bring this thing under the National Health Insurance scheme, okay, so that survivors or victims can be covered with this particular issue. Or fund the domestic violence fund, which is also in our law, so that it can cover this particular cost. People, the doctors can take it from there. Or reactivate, there's a court fund that the government is supposed to make some payment into that can be used for the transportation that doctors and so on, yes, the experts that come in to testify. So reactivate it in such a way that doctors know that they will get that kind of money, and that won't become one of the biggest barriers to prosecution.
So what's the difficulty in activating any of these three?
So I think, what my suspicion, and I'm saying this from maybe an informed point of view, even though it remains a suspicion, is that, after every change of government, a new person comes in, and sometimes even in the same government, the minister is changed, and everybody has their priorities, which is fine. But then you would have started work on a particular issue as a minister, and then the next one comes in, and that's not the priority. And that's what has happened in this particular case, because we have been following up on that. What we need is for a policy conversation to happen between the Ministry of Health, the National Health Insurance, the Gender Ministry, probably the Ministry of Interior as well, because they have oversight about what to do with this particular issue, whether we are going to move it under NHIA or move it into the Domestic Violence Fund and see to it that allocation is there for it. Otherwise, we'll keep frustrating those who have had the courage to report, and the police officers who want to do well. We will frustrate their work. So that's one of the things. The second thing has to do with the coordination issue. If you take the Domestic Violence Act, we also have regulations, okay, that were passed in 2016. But even before the regulations were passed, where the policy, there was a whole policy that was adopted lasting between 2010 and 2019, a 10-year policy. It's lapsed now. It has to be reviewed, but we haven't even implemented 3%. Look, we have assessed the 3% of that policy. And in that policy, all the coordinated systems are laid out clearly. How to do it at community level, all through to national level. Because there's a reason for it. It's a place where you can do both your referrals, your case management, and you can also make sure people pass through the system without being re-traumatized at every point in time. Okay? It's spelled out. So what do we need? We need a domestic violence secretariat that is able to whip every institution into line. Because the government has adopted that policy. We only have to review it a bit, that's all.
Must we always get a headmaster of a sort that must get things that, because you're spelling it out very beautifully.
Exactly.
Why won't we implement it?
Because
why do we need somebody with a cane?
You need a leader. You need a coordinator for this kind of approach to happen. In the jurisdictions where this thing goes on well, it's even the Attorney General that coordinates those kinds of systems, because it's considered to be so important and so high. Not only the Attorney General coordinates these systems and draws the services and the institutions into a coordinated model of approach, there's also budget that is allocated for this kind of work directly. Now, our governments do that for the Domestic Violence Secretariat, but the money is never quite enough. But put that aside, some of the things we are talking about is not about money. It's about somebody saying, look, we have a policy that's backing a law. We must all be lawful. It is time for us to speak together, have common systems of referral. You can't just do what you like where you are just because you think you are what. You can't do that. We have policies and laws to follow. And whether we are state or non-state institutions, we need to work in this approach so that we will help this person. Now, let's take Harriet. I'm sorry we are mentioning her name like that. It shouldn't have been the matter. But because she also came out and, everybody got to see her, it's become, we don't treat survivors like that. It's not the best thing. Now, if she was aware that such a system was available, okay, if she went to the Tesano police as she claims she went and did, she would have gone through maybe a hospital or come to the ARC or gone to social welfare, and the same system would work for her. It will work in such a way that Tesano police, if they did what she said they did, will not dare do what they did. Do you see? Because there is a certain accountability among the practitioners in the system. And this is not NGO work. The state has to set it in place, get it running, and we all fall into line.
We'll have to continue with this. Mr. Appiah, I'll come back very shortly to you to get your thoughts on it, but you're still here on Agenda on TV3. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll bring you some more answers.
When you're going to buy a pen, don't look left, don't look right. Go straight and grab the luxury acrylic paint. No be any paint, be paint.
The luxury acrylic paint.
Paint me champion. When you're going to buy a pen, don't look left, don't look right. Go straight and grab the luxury acrylic paint. No be any paint, be paint.
The luxury acrylic paint.
Paint me champion. When you're going to buy a pen, don't look left, don't look right. Go straight and grab the luxury acrylic paint. No be any paint, be paint.
The luxury acrylic paint.
Paint me champion.
This is Hot Issues, your passport to the most compelling conversations of our time. We go one-on-one with the movers and shakers, the thought leaders, and the game changers. We ask the questions that matter, and we don't back down. Tonight on Hot Issues, I sit with the man at the center of corruption investigations. Join me on Hot Issues here on TV3.
Hot Issues now shows on Sundays at 1 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news. This is Keep On. Analysis of the key issues facing us as a country.
The key points of the stories that matter with the people who matter.
This is Key Points, the #1 award-winning television news analysis program. Every Saturday, 7 a.m. on TV3 and on Free FM 92.7. TV3, first in news.
The news never stops. If it's not breaking, the news lends itself to significant analysis, broad context through explainers, and the features that give stories more life. That's what we offer on Weekend Central. News, features, analysis, the full package. Weekend Central, Saturdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
When you're going to buy a don't look left.
Minister, she's on the phone with us, and Mr. Bright Appiah, Executive Director, Charles Wright International, who is in studio with us. There's some interesting comments and questions as well, so let me read some of them to us, and then I'll come back to you, Madam Momolate, with some of them. It says, Dubli Verity says, let the institutions work. Agama Francis says, I like this show. It's very educative and informative. Keep it up. Senior Roland says, are you aware the education director is sanctioning teachers in the GA Central Municipal for not attending NATFLO to join their mid-term break? Teachers were asked to leave the classroom and wait for the direction at his office till 7 p.m. so he can insult them. Okay, we haven't verified this, but I'm just reading your comments. Those that went home to attend to their children have been queried with threat of giving them open release from the municipality. Why do some people abuse power and treat others with disdain just because of temporal power? And Patrick Essien says that the Tesano police, where the lady reported her case, should be investigated to know why they refused to act after the victim alleged to have reported the abuse several times. The team should follow up. And that's a question I would ask you, Honorable Minister. Hopefully you have information on that. And then there's a comment to you, Dr. Dwamna Boakye. Yeboah Benjamin says this woman is one of the finest brains in our country, so knowledgeable and experienced. But Mr. Appiah, I wanted to get your thoughts really, what to add to what Dr. Angela Dwamna Boakye has said in addition to the gender minister.
Well, I will look at the how the system is scattered in terms of those who stand at the gates of all these receiving all the issues and how victims can drop off issues and how it should be treated. I think that with all the things that we are talking about, we had that engagement with the Medical Association, and they also said same, that there's a law that backs them to do that. You go to other institutions, they would also give you the reasons why they are taking money for that. But I think that we have come to a level where the nation itself gotten some kind of cure for that. Because if you look at the case that was sent to court by Martin Kpebu versus Attorney General, the court was so clear on what we need to do as a country in terms of financing or putting money into the fund to be able to deal with two things. The first is the medical aspect of it, and then also building shelters. So I don't think that we should be too much worried about what Medical Association is saying. But if the state wants to be more responsive enough, it will take up the judicial decision of the court to say that, okay, these are all the confusions around it, but this is the way I want to approach it. So I think that the Ministry of Gender should look at that, because there is some kind of a backing in giving some kind of legitimacy to what the fund should be used for and the things that we need to put in there. So I think it's one of the things that we can look at to be able to deal with that issue. Again, you look at listening to the minister, I have a feeling that she will end up not even sitting in her office if she'd want to follow up on every single issue. And that for me would also not help her to also attend to policy issues.
That's indicative that the institutions are not working or not working properly.
Exactly, and that is where I'm coming. Because if you don't build a strong institutions, then you would look at it from the angle where DOPSU is doing their own thing, the Secretariat is doing their own thing, and we are not having data coordinating to each other to be able to understand the nature of the case and even monitor the prevalent rate of issues that reoccur all the time in terms of how you deal with it. So you need those institutions to be able to do that. And I think that the ministry that has the power to be able to do that is the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection. I think go out, negotiate with all these institutions to say, like the decentralization system. Social welfare used to be one of the strongest institutions in this country, where they are almost in every community. But when we introduce a decentralization system, now those who are at the district level do not even report to the national level. So you don't see the flow in terms of how issues are handled and what is happening in what district, and how you can even analyze the issue to profess a solution in terms of how you want to deal with it. But I think that the state itself must come to that conclusion that you have even what the document that Doctor made reference to, the strategic plan or that. When you pick the new social protection, it's like they have, I don't know how to say it, but it's like they have rehashed the whole thing and put it in there. So it means that as a country, we understand what we want to do. And how we want to approach it is something that, as a country, we should look at.
So who should be the person holding all these institutions that are not functioning well accountable?
You see, for us, where I sit, I think the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection should do that. Because just as the doctor said, we go to certain advanced countries, they have built the institution to the extent that if doctor comes to sit in the seat, doctor cannot change the principles and ideas around it. But because we have made it weak, ministers come and determine how the system to run, depending on their political ideologies or even their own perception about how to do social protection and all that. But the system must be structured in such a way that people can go through that. Whoever comes to sit in there will understand the principles we are operating with, what the outcome should be, and the issue that we have to pursue within our social protection system. Because, you see, if you don't have a strong social protection system, it will be weak, like what we are saying. Otherwise, the minister has to walk through all issues. Institution has to go through all manner of things. And I'm sure if you speak to DOSU right now, they will also tell you that they are overwhelmed with issues. Because if you look at even children issues alone, since 2020 up to 2024, the average cases that they receive is about 15,000. The average cases. So 2024, they had 16,000 cases. 2021, they had almost about 14. And currently in 2024, they have about 15,000 cases that they have to handle. So you can imagine, so if you don't have a proper, structured, and a nested social safety net, please, the net will break. And that is where we are now. And what is also not making it more attractive has to do with the fact that when the country wants to talk about social protection, we are just looking at the interventions without necessarily looking at the rehabilitation component of social protection. So you realize that most of the budget that we've had now is all talking about interventions. It's not really making provision for rehabilitation. Because definitely in a society where we live, people will behave abnormally and conduct themselves in a certain way. But you also need that kind of allocation to attend to the rehabilitation programs and all that. Because this man like this, I don't think that sending him to prison is enough.
Yeah.
He needs a rehabilitation program because something is wrong. Something is wrong. So you don't just send the person in there, but I think before even the person goes to serve his sentence, the person must receive that rehabilitation program.
Or
so,
even while they are serving the sentence, they could still receive that within the corridors of the prison service.
Exactly, but because we don't have budget, look at the amount of money that we have devoted for social protection. It's all interventions. It's either LAPE, school feeding program, blah, blah, and all that. But even the children that we are even giving the support to that are exhibiting certain behavior in our secondary schools, we don't have any rehabilitation program for them.
And Dr. John Abaji, I remember one of the stories we worked on many years ago when a 14-year-old was defiled, and eventually she came to one of your shelters for ACT Foundation. The DOPSU officer actually was the one keeping the child in her home before eventually she was given to your foundation. Exactly, and that's the point, Ms. Appiah, you were making about the overwhelming cases that they are receiving. But again, I'm going back to responsibility. Where in this country, we've heard leaders say that MCs and DCs that fail to perform would be replaced. Why can't we apply the same thing to these institutional heads who probably may not even know what is in the policies that you've read? Some of them may be working in these institutions and may not necessarily
that will be sad commentary, actually, if they don't know what's in the laws and policies, because they are available. And if we are working with these things, you must know what applies, okay? So, so I'm hoping that's not the case. Yes, people must be made responsible, but we need the lead coordinator to work so that once you're able to start a system working to a certain degree, you're able to assess how it is doing, and then people can be made really responsible. As it is now, it looks like everybody is trying to do what they can do.
In silos.
Their own, exactly, in silos. Yeah. And it isn't so much because that's the way they want to do it, but it is because the system gives you that, how do you call it? I don't even know whether to call it discretion. Okay, if I want, and like I'm saying, there's excellent police officers who would work with what is available on the ground. Okay, because they themselves want to do that and get good results for the victim who is sitting. But there's some who don't care two hoots. So if I decide I don't want to work with that system or that system, nobody challenges me about it because, yes, I'm doing my thing. That is what must stop. The Ministry of Gender has a domestic violence secretariat. The domestic violence secretariat is headed or is led by a domestic violence management board. It is called a management board, not an advisory board.
Exactly.
Because it's supposed to manage domestic violence cases. And even in the policy, it broadened it to sexual and gender-based violence cases because it's the same institutions that work on these issues, okay? Now, if we don't give those institutions the capacity to work, that becomes problematic. Now, let me say one thing. Usually, the Domestic Violence Management Board should not be treated like the boards that go in 4 years and are dissolved in the next 4 years or whatever it is. But that's the way it's going. It will be sworn in 2 years after the government comes. This time around, they did it very quickly. But the usual pattern has been that after 2 years or so, when the government comes in, then this management board is sworn in. It's supposed to work 4 times a year, meet 4 times a year. How do you manage domestic violence and other forms of meeting 4 times when you're a management board? But that is, the law didn't say that. The law just said at least 4 times because it envisages that you would be constantly on the lookout for how the systems are running and so on. So in effect, this management board is supposed to be like the boss of every institution working in this sector. And the secretariat is supposed to give it the technical and administrative backup. I wish you would visit the secretariat. I wish you would visit the secretariat. And so it gives, the policy is there and they are not able to work it because it's such a...
You think a visit will show the ineffectiveness of that secretariat?
It's not so much even ineffectiveness as capacity issues, okay? So it makes it difficult for it to handle the tasks that are assigned to the board, okay? And this board comes in, sometimes, I remember I've been on the board before, there's a point where they'll tell you, we can't even meet because we don't have allowances for you. How much allowance, sitting allowance was it? 100 Ghana cedis minus withholding tax. That was a certain. I'm not worried about that because the people on the board were not on the board for any certain allowance. We wanted to work. But the civil service people there will tell you, we can't even meet because we can't have money to pay you for. So how do we treat a board that's supposed to manage these cases according to the law like that? Those are some of the institutional issues.
So no level of seriousness and urgency attached to such critical issues.
That's my thinking, and it's because I've worked in this for so long. Nobody needs to convince me about what I'm seeing. And so if there's a minister, and I know that this minister is really trying to get her hands on it, I would say look at the systems within and find out ways in which you can capacitize them to that they can act. Don't wait for the money. Some of these things are not waiting. It's about the working together. Okay, like she said, somebody has this. So we run a shelter. We can take care of some of those issues. DOSU One-Stop Center can take care of forensic lab, even taking the person to court for a protection order because if they go for a lawyer, they can't pay them and it's heavy money. You know, the courts can kick in something and then at the decentralized levels too, the gender department will be looking at what is happening down there.
Even let's use DOSU as the one-stop center. I think it's a classic example that we can all follow. And it's all about leadership because what that building has been there for so many years, and then one person came in and decided to put the place in order, you know. And now when you go there, all services are within the same building. that they can take care of a child, and they can, to the extent that sometimes when some of these victims, adult victims comes in, they even accommodate them. So it is a model that we can also adopt in other institutions to make sure to see how things are
it's
working.
It's the coordination model,
exactly.
The same kind of coordination. That's already in the policy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me come back to you, Honorable Momolati. The understanding here is that at the end of the day, you still need to hold the bull by the horn. What are you doing in terms of holding these institutions accountable, even as you try to use soft skills, as it were, to get them to work?
Okay, thank you. So this is one good thing that came with the research agenda. Right from the beginning, there's a whole lot of government priority areas which were put together. So every minister knows that for this priority area, I'm supposed to work with this institution, that institution. And so the ministers have to coordinate to work on the issues and then report to the senior government official on responsible for that, and then also to cabinet. And so when it comes to responsibility, you are reporting, and then you have no option than to make sure that before you even go and report, you've done some coordination. I think that is what has helped me as a minister, because for a ministry that for the past 8 years have had like 7 ministers, you know that the headship, political headship, has been a bit weak, or let me say fragile. For heads of the various departments, civil servants are not such, they are recycled. And so the sense I kept telling myself that I think we don't have the same level of sense of urgency, and because we had timelines to, produce what results under His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. I can't afford to sit and say that I am waiting for them. And that is the more reason why sometimes you see that I have to come from the policy level and then get the department to move along with me to do some of the things I am doing. But to a large extent, I agree with the coordinating role. We need to strengthen that. The good thing is also that I can call any of my colleagues and say that this is what is happening. My officer is dealing with this, or my institution is dealing with this. This is where you have to come in. And so far, especially the collaboration with the Ministry of Interior, it's been good, where I can call the minister and then he's there. Even in conflict situations, even whether he's available or not. Once women and children are affected, I said this is what we need to function, and then he's there to do that. Just recently, before I hand over, just recently you realized that there was a kid who had an accident on the farm. I just needed to reach out to my colleague and then also to NHIA. And then with the director, we were able to mobilize resources to get the child through surgery. And so these are some of the coordinations that with this administration, I think I am enjoying. Other than that, it would have been difficult having changed political headship frequently over the period.
Doc,
so, and then with the issues of the board, you realize that we had a timeline to make sure that all boards were properly composed and everybody was working and you were reporting back. So it would be strange that maybe after 3 months when you were supposed to have reported, a board is still not reporting. It was a thing of shame. And it shows incompetency. And so that checks and balances is helping us to do it well. What I'm hoping to do is to strengthen that collaboration amongst us.
I'm sorry, Doc, our time is up, but in like 15 seconds, if you can tell us what's happening with the Tesano police station, where the woman said she reported and nothing was done, in just about 15 seconds, please.
Okay, so it's an issue that I picked up with the CID, and I'm told that full investigation is ongoing. and then they will make sure that if anybody is found wanting, the person is brought to book.
Thank you very much. Please, 15 seconds, your final thought.
Well, I just think that this minister wants to do right, and we should support her. But it must become systemic. If it isn't, the moment she's shifted into a higher place,
We'll go back to her bad ways.
Oh, that has always happened. One police officer is moved, everything falls apart. One social worker is moved, everything. That's not the way we want to go.
Please, 15 seconds.
Well, I think I'll still hammer on the same thing, that one of the things that you should do is to make sure that she build a very strong institution to be able to do those things on her behalf. So basically, that is what I would urge her to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bright Tapia, Executive Director, Charles Rights International. Thank you for being a part of this conversation, as well to you, Dr. Angela Jamnabwaje, lawyer and Executive Director of the ACT Foundation. Thank you so much. And to you as well, the Honourable Minister, Dr. Agnes Na Momo Latte, Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on Agenda tonight. Join us again next week. Have a good evening.